We just want to thank you for tuning in one more time. This is Agape Life Youth Ministries, and it's just a pleasure to have a chat with you tonight. We have the 18 today. I call them the 18, okay, because these people, it's been hard trying to get them, but I've got all of them here today, all 6 of them here today, so we're going to have a good time. But before that, let's have a word of prayer. Father, we thank you for your faithfulness, that once again, you've given us a day that you've instructed us to rejoice and be glad in. Spirit of the living God, we thank you for all that you've been doing for us, the protection, the sustenance you've given us, Father, the provisions that you've made possible in our lives and that of our families. We just want to say thank you. We thank you for the fact that tonight you're sitting in our midst and you're going to hear this discussion. We pray for our guests in the name of Jesus. Anybody that is tuning in, Lord God, that you need to touch, Father, touch them. That at the end of this meeting, they will know they've had an encounter with you. Commit the panelists into your hands, Lord. Fill their hearts with joy. Grant them the grace and the power and the utterance from above. And Lord God, you speak through them for your children to hear. We thank you and we bless you in Jesus' name. Amen.
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 Amen. Amen. So, my name is Pastor Ernest Dodu. I'm the youth pastor at Agape Life Ministry, the host for tonight's talk. Our talk is entitled God-Fidence. It's just a talk on how to boost your self-esteem through godly character. Okay? We don't want to, yes, some of you pay money and you listen to these things, you take trips and you go listen to these self-esteem talk and you come back and it's the same cycle. But tonight we're going to break that cycle. You know why? Because these young men and women are going to speak to you their experiences and they're going to speak to you the things that they've gone through. So you know, and you will know that you identify with people who are going through the same things that you've been through. They've been through that. Nobody's perfect here. We are all still working at it. By the grace of God, we will get to where God wants us to get to, all right? So I first just want to recognize our senior pastor who's given us this platform to, as young people, to come together and talk about life, you know. And we're just so grateful for his life and that of his wife, Pastor Julia. We just want to thank them for the support that they give in the youth ministry, and we can't thank them enough. And we just want to thank all Agape members for your growing support and the family members that you are. We appreciate you. Okay, so tonight, like I said, our topic is on God-Fidence. But as a youth ministry, one thing that, you know, caused us to get into this conversation is that we realized that a lot of people, a lot of young people, maybe older people, you know, have this problem, and there's the tendency for people to keep quiet about it. You know what? Let me deal with it. This is my thing. No, it's not your thing. It's our thing. When you hurt, we hurt. When I hurt, you hurt. So it's important that tonight we have a civil discussion about this. You know, let's speak from our hearts. Let's let each other know the truth, and let people know that, you know what, some people have gone through it, and by God's grace, they've made it, and they continue to make it. And therefore, you can also. So tonight, one thing we're going to focus on is that we want you to leave here, stop comparing yourselves to others. That is one cardinal point of low self-esteem. Also, if you're a bully, you're a mean-spirited person, we want you to listen to what is going to go on tonight and change your mindset. Because if you're a bully, you have a low self-esteem. Maybe your low self-esteem is coming from the fact that you like to bring people down. That is something that we can do. We also want to encourage those who, when they fail, they close out. They say, it's not for me. Failure is not the end. Tonight, you're going to hear stories that will elevate you and know that, you know what, this is just the beginning. And we're also going to talk about the fact that, you know what, you can't be pleasing everybody. You cannot live your life pleasing everybody. You have to take care of you. And that is one cardinal point. You need to work hard and work harder. Lazy people, if you're lazy, you have a low self-esteem. That's the fact, okay? And last but not the least, and there are other things, you know, we want you to stay away from people who bring you down. People who don't add value to your life. They cause you to have low self-esteem because they have low self-esteem and they just want company. So we're going to talk about how you can stay away from all these people. This is how much talking I'm going to do. I'm done. And now I'm going to introduce our panel to you, okay? First is my girl, Gina Akosia Ampons. And Gina, just wave so they can see who you are. All right. You can unmute. Please unmute our panel, please. Yep. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Gina is a business consultant with a background in contemporary communications and psychology. Okay, Gina is one of our Revive Cell leaders. And apparently, Gina is also a Sunday school teacher with a high school class at Agape. So, once again, Gina Amponsa. All right. Next, we have Dr. Kwabena Ajimansa Kodie. Oh my goodness. Why are you wearing a hat? You're bald. Can you take the hat off so you see that baldness?
My barber canceled my appointment.
Oh, your barber did. So that is a bearded bald bassist. He just graduated from the University of Maryland Pharmacy School. He's a new pharmacist in town, and I've been chasing this guy for I don't know what, but we have him here today. All right. So that is Dr. Kwabena Ajimansa Kodie. Next, we have my lady, Miss Tina Finn. Tina, can you wave, please? Hey. Can you unmute her, please? Please unmute her.
I'm unmuted.
Okay. This is Miss Tina Finn. She's an IT professional. And apparently she shared the same birthday with me. So you can tell why we were just that close. Tina is I'm going to say this. Tina is somebody that most people misjudge a lot because you have to be close to Tina to know who Tina is. Mm-hmm. And I don't blame them, but she's misjudged a lot. Tina is a person that loves to help people. Tina helps people a lot. And I see you guys shaking your head. Those who are close to her know that. She takes pride in the fact that she's grown in the Lord. And Tina is one of our Revive Cell leaders. Ladies and gentlemen, Tina Finn. Can you wave one more time? Most people didn't see you wave. There you go. Thank you. Next we have, oh my goodness. What you wearing? Blue shirt?
Chelsea all day.
Oh my goodness. That's Mr. Ben Ofori. Mr. Ben Ofori, he graduated from the Maryland School of Law in 2017. He was a prosecutor with the DA's office in Baltimore City, but currently he's an associate attorney at Tenagala and Hunt, Professional Association.
Mm-hmm.
Ben is one of our cell leaders at Revive. He loves to cook. And it hurts me to say that he's a Chelsea fan. So that's lawyer Ben Ofori. All right. Next we have my girl. I call her mommy, but her name is Dr. Candy Bonsu. Mommy, can you wait for them, please? Yes, that's Dr. Bonsu. She's practicing board certified anesthesiologist and intervention pain management specialist. She's a partner at Tidewater Anesthesia Associates in Easton, Maryland. She is married to a wonderful young gentleman, handsome dude, great man, and she has 2 beautiful children. So that's Dr. Candy Bonsu. All right?
Yeah.
Last but not the least, my man, Mr. T. What's up, man? That's Mr. Lawrence Tynes. Lawrence apparently married my daughter, Sheila. He's a husband and father of 4 children. Dude, you done, right?
Sheila.
Oh my goodness. Lawrence has a master's degree in medical physics and works with the federal government in intellectual property. That is Mr. Tynes. So ladies and gentlemen, these are the young men and women that will be talking to you today. If you have a question and you want to direct it to a particular person, we'll do that. So we'll spend the first 45 minutes having a chat, and then we'll open the lines for questioning, okay? So we're going to go straight. Actually, before we start, this discussion is based on 2 Bible passages that we put out. The first one is 2 Timothy 1:7, which says that for the Spirit God gave us does not make us timid, but gives us power, love, and self-discipline, right? And the second one was Ephesians 2:10. We say that for we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. So whatever that we have, God has prepared that in advance for us. So if you're not doing that, you're sitting on the grace and the gifts that God has given you. And therefore tonight we're going to try and burn some fire under you so that will wake up in you. All right? My first question, I'll pose that first question to you, Gina. What is God-Fidence, and why is self-esteem important for the young Christian adult?
Okay, I hope everyone can hear me all right. I would say God-Fidence is confidence, but with the God factor involved. So I did a quick Google search of the word confidence, and some of the definitions that came up were the feeling of belief that one can rely on someone or something, firm trust, the state of feeling certain about the truth of something, and a feeling of self-assurance arising from one's appreciation of one's own abilities and qualities. So as God-fearing individuals, it's almost like to say that you are God-fearing and a Christian, but you don't have confidence is like the two don't meet anywhere. So confidence and self-esteem is very important for any Christian today and has always been, because that's your representation of Christ's image. You are a representation of Christ here on earth. You are the light to the earth, to the world. So God-Fidence is having that confidence in yourself, but not so much relying on human ability or what you bring to the table, but acknowledging that everything you have, everything that you are, everything that you carry, and you own here on earth is all by the grace of God. It's all through God's blessings. And when you see it from that perspective, it starts to illuminate or show itself in your character, in your speech, in your posture, in everything that you do, the decisions that you make. And so, yeah, people might see you as somebody who's, wow, they have, good confidence, or they have high self-esteem, but it's not to be confused with pride, because that's not a godly trait or characteristic. So confidence is having that confidence with knowing that you're backed by God and led by God. And then it's important to have that within your own, ingrained in your self-esteem, so that you are the proper representation of God's representative here on earth.
Good. Okay. All right. So this is what God has placed in you, and knowing that God's got your back.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So let me get to the genesis of this, and I want us to use our personal lives. So, Mommy, Dr. Bonsu, let me come to you. Speaking about yourself, I know you're a very confident lady, and I admire that about you. How did this evolve?
I think several things happen, and I always, tell young people that a lot of times we were raised in a certain environment. As Ghanaians, as Christians, we're very humble. We're raised to, sort of put elders or people around us in a pedestal. And a lot of times our voices are lost because we have authority always telling us what to do, and kind of nurturing us in the home where if you speak up, people say, I hope you all understand what I'm saying. But at a young age, and I think the last time I spoke to you, I mentioned that, at a young age, I didn't have confidence because I felt I couldn't speak up a lot. And that's something that's very common in our homes. But as I got older, I started to realize that in order for me to represent who I am, or to put myself out there, I have to start speaking up. I had to learn that. It took a while, but I did. It started probably turning around when I was in high school. You get involved with people who are, Americans are raised differently. They can speak up whenever. When they're in the classroom, they can talk. We were raised not to even say anything until someone calls on you. So a lot of times I think it shatters our self-confidence a little bit. But as you get older and you start to realize what you want in life, you kind of start to speak up, and you have to speak up. I think a lot of us are timid about speaking in public, talking to people, and it all lack of confidence. I think if you know what you want, you know who you are, you know what you bring to the table in a godly manner, I should say, you start to speak up, you start to represent that, people start to see it in you. And again, there is a thin line between being, boasting or being proud of yourself and having confidence. Having confidence doesn't mean you're loud, not at all. It just means when you're called upon or when you're seen, people can see it or feel it or know that you have it. But I think it didn't just happen overnight. I had to develop it. I had to kind of fight for myself in a way. And I think for us as young people, having confidence is also having self-esteem and knowing who you are. You have to know yourself. You have to know what you're going to bring to the table. I know you had mentioned that, not just what you bring to the table, but being confident is being in the know. So if you know something, you're confident. When you're called upon, you can represent yourself. Being a Christian, if you know the word or you know what's behind you, if you know what's beside you, your parents praying for you, your pastors praying for you, having people that you can relate to, that you can call, who can kind of boost you or give you that confidence. You're sure to walk into any room and be, and represent yourself. So I think confidence is not just, again, just being in the know, but it's how you feel about yourself, having good, high self-esteem. And again, it's not being proud, it's just being in the know, and that puts you out there, and you're able to, again, walk in confidence. Yes, it's great to have all these like attributes of like, the Christian walk. I mean, it's great I'm glad that you guys are doing this, because it's great to know that there are people like this who you can call on. They're friends. It seems like a lot of you are friends, and you seem like you all know each other. If you have all this information at your hand, I think your confidence will just come without even somebody, having to pick on you or whatever. But again, I think it took time for me. I had to learn it, and I had to take it myself. I don't know how everyone else's education here was like, or what everyone's experience is like, but it didn't just happen overnight. It took time, but I think I gained it by being myself and knowing myself and knowing what I wanted. And I think for that I went after, if that makes sense to you all. But that's a little bit I have. I mean, I have more stories, but we just started, so. Anyway, back to you, Pastor Ernest.
Pastor Ernest, you're muted.
I'm sorry. I'll blame it on the producer. All right. So thank you, Mommy, for that. Miss Tina, let me come to you. Tina, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, sir.
All right. So growing up, going to high school in this country, and you know how sometimes people can tease, especially in high school, people can tease a lot. And that sometimes shuts somebody down. And most people have low self-esteem based on what their experiences from high school or even elementary school. And they're stuck in it. What is your story like?
So for my story,
Tina?
Yes. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you.
So for me, I don't really have any personal stories relating to that. I can only attest to the people that were around me that went through that kind of experience. I guess fortunately for me, for some reason, one way or the other, I did not go through high school with low self-esteem or being bullied I just never experienced it. I was just always got along with everybody. So it just worked out in my favor per se, because I'm personable if I like you. But the people around me who were of the same, coming from Africa, just like, I am as well, I experienced how some of them were shut down. They were very quiet. They wouldn't talk. And it's all because of the way people portrayed them. They were laughed at because of their accent, because of the way they looked, because of the way they dressed. When I was in high school, we did not wear uniform. We wore our regular clothes to school. So you get judged a lot, especially if you're not wearing the latest Jordans, the latest clothes, and etc. People will laugh at you. And it made it very difficult. And these are the same people I hung around with everybody, with the Africans, with my African Americans, with whoever. I was just in the middle, always in the middle. But I realized that it got to a point that they were even ashamed to be Africans. When somebody asks you where you're from, you would say Jamaica, you would say an island somewhere, you would say every country but your own, only because you're afraid of how people would judge you. Mm-hmm. But it was a learning experience. And it's funny that, fast forward now, these same people, one girl in particular that I was very close with in high school, who was, one of the people that was laughed at a lot, she is now a mogul, I should say. She is a social media. She's doing it big. People don't know her because she doesn't show her face, but I know who that brand is. And this is the same person I went to high school with. But I'm sure that, over the years, she had to gain confidence one way or the other. And, you know, like I was discussing with you, that times have changed. When I was in high school, being African wasn't cool. I mean, I think we can all attest to that. Now it's a trend. Now it's popping. So obviously that alone would give any African a confidence just coming into the country today. And one example that actually just came in my head is I remember vividly when I came to this country. I was very young, but when I came, I wasn't aware that I was coming to America. So I think the day before coming, well, I wasn't aware I was coming. So the day before, I got a haircut. I went to my barber shop. I went to the barber and I got a haircut. And before you know it, the next day, they're packing my stuff and telling me I'm going to Accra. I'm like, why am I going to Accra? Because I normally go to Accra just on the holidays. And they say you're going to America. But once again, at that point, I felt nothing because so in Ghana, it was normal to have a haircut until I landed in New York, until I came to Maryland. And what I still did not realize it was a problem until I saw people staring at me. Because at that moment, I was confident, but I realized that everybody was looking at me and people were pointing one way or the other. And that made me shut down a little bit because of what people said or how people looked at me. So that all ties to the confidence that we really, really, really look at what people say, people do, their reaction, their behavior towards us. And that really affected me for some time because I wouldn't want to go out. I said, if my hair is not growing, I can't get my braids, I'm not going anywhere. But I had to step out regardless because I couldn't be in the house all the time. But anyway, in that regards, you know, that's the only thing that really stands out. That was even prior to high school. That was like around middle school, I would say. So that's the only thing that stood out. But other than that, you know, like I said, I've witnessed other people going through the different stages of being insecure and being bullied, all because of how they looked like or where they come from.
Right. Well, Dr. Bonsu was laughing because when she got here, she came in from secondary school and she got her sexy haircut.
I was telling Pastor Ennis when I got here, I got here when I guess I went to 7th grade, and I had a short haircut because that's what we did back home. And again, I didn't think there was anything wrong with it until someone actually approached me, 7th grade, and asked me, "Are you gay?" And I had no idea what gay was. Not realizing, because I look
my goodness.
And because I look like a boy, so therefore I was gay. And I went home with my parents, like, still confused. But anyway, I had the same story. Anyway, it was a long time ago, but whatever.
Dr. Sarkodie, let me come to you, man. You had your first degree in general studies, right?
Yeah.
And you get to this country. What gave you that vein that, you know what, I'm going to go to pharmacy school? What happened to you?
Someone sent a text out that said I don't have hair. Anyway, so I think in high school, third year in high school, SS3 in Ghana, I got the opportunity to work as like the dispensary prefect in school. So that was like my first encounter around drugs and little patient care, because you know when someone comes to see the nurse would call me and then I'd help dispense drugs. And then that's when I began moving away from my childhood dream of being an engineer. And all through when I came to America, I still remember when I and my dad asked me what did I want to do, and I told him I wanted to go to pharmacy school. And he was very, 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 very confused because all my life it was I wanted to be an engineer, and all of a sudden I changed my mind. But for me personally, when I set my mind on being a pharmacist and my dad came to terms with it, having him, keeping up with my classes, keeping up with my grades, and, every time I had an exam, studying, and then before he goes to bed, he would pray and talk to pray with the Lord gives knowledge, out of his mouth comes wisdom and understanding. He would literally read that verse every single exam. And, first semester, I think I had a 4.0. Next semester, I was a 3.75. And then gradually, I was just like, I believe that, since it's been a smooth path through undergrad, I believe that, whichever pharmacy school I get to, I would do well and I will excel in it. So having my dad, honestly, has been a great support system in my life. Yeah, so most of my confidence comes from him. Well, first part of undergrad, yes. You're muted.
You're muted.
Yeah. I'm having problems with me going as I change my position. So, your dad is a good man.
Great man.
He's a great man.
Yeah.
But all right. Mr. Lawrence Tynes. Okay, so I'm coming to you. There are young men on this Zoom meeting that really don't understand why this timidity is so pressed upon them. What can you say to these young people, especially the young men here, using your experience growing up in this country? Because most of them born here, they kind of can't relate to what some of our panel are talking about. What can you tell them?
Your question is about timidity?
Yeah, especially for young men who are born here. Mm-hmm. Tina and Dr. Bonsu and Mrs. Sarko, they are talking about experiences coming from another place to this place. I just want you to transition to those who were born here. Since you were born here, and what is your story? How did your confidence,
Well, my confidence originally came from playing sports. I wrestled, played football, baseball, all of that from the time I was about 8 years old. And that was the initial genesis of my confidence. And then from there, God began to deal with me. And I started getting, my confidence became in God, because when you're doing things in high school, for instance, everybody got joked. I got joked because I was light skinned. I got joked because I was taller than everybody else. And if you were dark skinned, you got joked for that. If you had on Jordans, somebody would find something about the Jordans to joke you about. So that kind of built up a defense in me to not take things so personally, because everybody's getting joked on. If you're from Africa, if you're from Mexico, if you're from America, no matter where you are, you're going to get joked on for something. And if you take it the wrong way, they're going to take that as an advantage to pick at you even more until you know how to kind of stand up for yourself. And playing sports, that let me know that I could do stuff, that I could take pain or whatever, that I could accomplish some goals. I could win championships. When you win something, when you accomplish something, when you make the team, when you make the varsity or whatever, that builds your self-esteem and your self-confidence. But then when it comes down to a more personal level, you can do all of that stuff and still go home and be miserable or feel lonely or whatever. And that's where God comes in, because God began to deal with me in that respect. And when you try to do the right thing, sometimes all of the people that praise you for your sports, that praise you for your business, that praise you for your grades, if you try to start doing the right thing, the same people will begin maybe sometimes tear you down, or like crabs in a bucket type of thing. And when God began to deal with me, I began to get down to the foundational essence of what self-esteem is. And when I began to follow after God and know that I'm what God thinks of me and what God wants of me, and do the right thing, then I would feel good no matter what's going on around me. If people were laughing because, I don't know, I didn't want to go to the club or something, I didn't care, because I knew I was pleasing God. That made me feel great. even though everybody else might have been, oh, you think you're holier than thou or whatever. I didn't care. I'm like, all right, whatever. God is pleased. And that would always make me feel good no matter where I was. When I got to college and everybody was getting high and getting drunk and doing all of these things, and they were like, oh, what's wrong with you? What are you, gay or something? I'm like, no, but I don't care if you think that. Yeah, because girls would ask me that all the time because I wouldn't do some things I wouldn't do. There's lines I wouldn't cross. And they would ask me that question, but that wouldn't cause me to yield to the peer pressure of falling into those areas, because I knew what God wanted. And when I pleased God, then I would feel great no matter what. So that was the real essence of self-esteem. And then the last part is getting around the right people. I learned quickly that if you hang around the right people, when you try to do the right thing, they'll encourage you.
Yeah.
They won't laugh at you. If you pick out your Bible, they're like, what are you, a Christian or something? If people are like that around you, those are people you need to stay away from. Because the longer you stay around those people, they're going to tear you down and keep tearing you down until you fall and conform to their way of doing things. So I learned it got lonely sometimes because I'm like, man, where is everybody? Where's all the Christians at? And a lot of times it would be people in church telling me to calm down. It's not that serious or whatever. But as long as I knew that I was pleasing God, I wouldn't care. I'd be like, okay, well, I'll just be by myself then until I find the right kind of people to be around. So the foundation for me was just knowing that I was pleasing God, even though I wasn't perfect or nothing. It's still not perfect, never will be. But just knowing that I'm putting forth that effort to please God his way, that makes me feel good no matter where I am, no matter who I'm around. So I think that was the main thing for me.
All right. Ben.
Yes, sir.
You know, the last time I checked, you were in middle school, Sunday school class, trying to get to our class, the high school class, always sneaking in. And all of a sudden now you're an attorney.
Right.
All right. Can you give us your story and how now you became, because you weren't this confident. I know that for a fact.
At all.
Okay. So tell us your story, man.
Yeah. So for those of you who know me when I was younger, I was a very shy, quiet kid, almost a mute. I didn't talk much. You know, I kept to myself. I had a certain select group of friends. But I think for me, one thing that I knew at a young age was I knew the type of person who I was, but I didn't have that confidence. I was shy, so I didn't have the ability to like express myself in the way that I knew I was until I reached a certain age. So for me, it was definitely around probably 7th grade. So maybe like 13 years old when I actually started breaking out of my shell a little bit and started to develop a little more confidence. And where that came from, actually, I think it was, I would say my family a little bit, but mainly, and I think that Lawrence touched on it too, was, you know, the friends that I surrounded myself with. You know, around that age, around, you know, 10 through 13, transitioning from elementary school to middle school, you know, you're relatively young, but you're still at that time, you're kind of like discovering your identity. So I had a group of friends whom I realized that they liked me for who I was. You know what I mean? To them, I was funny. To them, I was smart. To them, I was a good person to be around. So I became very comfortable just being around them. I became comfortable being myself. So when I realized that these people like me for who I am, you know what I mean? And that people enjoy my company, I started developing this confidence in who Ben Ofori actually is. Okay. So at that point, I started probably around, like I said, 7th grade, you know, just doing the things that I would do. For those of you who are close to me, I like to joke around. I'm silly, I'm extroverted and things like that. So I started doing that around people who I don't even know. Because what I knew was that the people that I had met or the people who I was close to the years prior liked that about me. So it kind of like built that identity of, oh, this is who Ben Ofori is. So from there, I kind of took that and ran with it all throughout middle school and into high school. And going forward as well. Not to say that, I haven't had my setbacks where sometimes I don't feel as though I'm myself or I'm less confident. But to this day, like, I remember that moment when I realized that, like, oh, this is the type of person I am. And I'm not going to like try to like please anybody else. I know Tina was saying something like, when you're in high school, especially over here as opposed to Ghana, that, there are certain, physical things that people look for. They look at, you know what I mean, to judge kind of your stature, your superlative, how you dress, your shoes, you know what I mean, your hair, are you playing sports, things like that. I didn't have any of that stuff, and probably until maybe high school. But, it was definitely the friends that I had made whom kind of, assured me of, or gave me, the confidence and ability to assure myself of who I was. So from there, I kind of took that going forward.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thanks for this intro. Let's get to the meat of of things now. One thing that I always tell people is that there's nothing like perfection. Okay, there's nothing like perfection. So young people should not strive for perfection. And there are people that when they're doing something and they fail, they think that is it. This is not for me. Okay. Dr. Bonsu, let me bring this to you. In your work or in your career trying to be a medical doctor, were there times that I've talked to you, I know you, things weren't like straight A's all out, okay?
Nope.
You had ups and downs. Can you talk to our young people some of the ups and downs and how you reacted to it?
So I think I would start off by saying when I was in college, I knew very early on that I wanted to go to medical school. Why, I don't know. I never gave myself the chance to actually learn anything else, but I was like a science student, and that's all I wanted to do. And I remember one day walking into my guidance counselor's office, and I said to this woman, I remember her very well. I said to her, I'm thinking of applying in my junior year for medical school. And she says to me, oh, I think you should apply to a DO school. It'll be easier to get in. That was the first thing that came out of her mouth. And I didn't say anything to her. I said, okay, thank you for her advice. And I walked out of her office. And I think she said it, not because she didn't think I could do it, but she said it because in her mind, she's like, well, it's tough for Black people to get in and all these stressors and everything that's going on. Her thinking is, well, if you go to a DO school, it's easier to get in the scores. You don't need that, better scores. You need this, you need that. And based on my record, it seemed like that would be the best thing to do. But that's not what I wanted. Mm-hmm. I knew what I wanted. I knew what I was going to do. And I knew I was going to do everything in my will to get in. Yes. And I even tell this to my nephew. I took the MCATs 3 times. The first time I took it, I got a score and I looked at my score and I said, you know what? I'm probably not going to get an interview if I apply with these scores. So I studied another year, took it again. Second time, I improved dramatically on my scores, but again, I knew it was not good enough. So I ended up having to take this exam 3 times. Believe it or not, the third time, I blew my scores. I couldn't even believe I scored that high. But the point is, I didn't stop on the first time. There were 6 girls. 2 girls were actually from Ghana, and the other 4 were all Caribbean girls who went to the same college. And our track was to go to medical school. Out of the 6, 2 of the 2 Ghanaian girls were the only girls who ended up in medical school. Everyone else was like, oh, they took the test. Oh, it was too hard and I didn't score well. And they all dropped out, or they all stopped and took different paths. But what I'm trying to tell you is if you want something bad enough, you will go for it. Yeah. It doesn't matter what's in your way. Yeah, my parents didn't have a lot of money, and I knew in order to get in, I needed scholarships or to be able to afford it or whatever. I needed to score very well in the exam. And I had to take it 3 times, which was 3 years. So I lost a year in between, meaning, I graduated college and I stayed back another year. And in that year, I did research while I was studying for that exam. But the point is, it didn't deter me. I was ready to do it. Whatever sacrifice I had to do, I did. Yes, people in college were hanging out, going to clubs. I didn't do any of that. Do I regret it? A little bit, because now I can't do that. But the point is, I wanted it bad enough that I did it. Do you understand what I'm saying? And it has not always been easy. Every step of the way, you're going to have a stumbling block. But you're just going to get up and say, you know what? I'm going to do it. Tomorrow's another day. It doesn't matter what happened yesterday. I'm going to go for it. You know what I mean? And I did. And I have many stories. But the point is, young people have to understand success is not going to come the first time you try. Nobody. I don't care. You can talk to all the, successful billionaires or programmers or all these people that are out there. And they'll tell you they didn't just try the first time and win. Facebook did not happen. You have to try a couple of times. So the point is, if you want something bad enough, you have to go for it. You have to sacrifice. And we all do it. And especially if you have a strong support system, it will work out. You know what I mean? And I think what you guys are doing is great. I mean, people can look up to you guys and say, oh, there's this person that went to law school. You know what? Let me hit him up. Let me find out what he did. Maybe he can direct me. Let him look at my essay. What did he do in college? How did he prepare? And these are all these things that hopefully people who are listening know you have available that some of us didn't have. You know what I mean? Like, I have an aunt who is a physician, but when I wanted to go to medical school, it wasn't anything that I could have asked her, but it didn't seem like something she was willing to help. I think I probably didn't push her to do it for me. But I think if I know if I knew what I know now, which is there are people out there who are actually willing to help us.
Yeah.
People succeed because it doesn't stop with just a failed test or bumming out of a class. It doesn't matter. That's just a small portion of it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, just realize, okay, I want this bad enough that I'm going to get up the next morning or next semester, I'm going to take it again, if that's what it takes or whatever. Like, I'm going to do it again. But you have to be persistent. You have to be resilient. You have to want it bad enough that you would, keep going. Yeah, we're all going to fail. If you don't fail, you didn't try. Like, you have to try. You're going to fail. And when you're just going to rub it off and get up and say, hey, I'm going to go for it again. And it can be done. It can be. There are many of us. It can be done. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Anyway.
Okay. All right. So, Ms. Gina Amponsa, Akusia.
Yes, Uncle Ernest.
Now, I want you to take it from the psychology point of view. What is the mindset that causes people not to, when they fail, they resign? They say, you know what, this is not for me. Add something to this for me, please.
Based on my experience and background in psychology, I would say, and I tend to lean more on the side of, everything that we see in our day-to-day human behavior or our dispositions, our character, our habits, some way, somehow are connected. They have a source. They have a vantage point. And most times it will stem from childhood experiences and those core developmental years between 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, get into your adolescence and adolescence as well. So I would say that, it could be anything that you may have experienced at home. It will have factors that might be cultural or socioeconomic or even psychological. And for instance, let's say as a child, if I was burdened with a lot of responsibilities at an early age, like, look, by the time I get home, I want you to have swept the house, mopped the floor, cooked dinner, do this, do that. And then the one time that I don't, or I forget to do any of those, and I'm harshly reprimanded, and I'm told oh my God, you're so incompetent, you can't do anything, da 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 da. And it's as a child, if you're hearing this from your provider, your caretaker, your nurturer, the person who brought you into this world, that carries a lot of weight. So what do you do? You will go above and beyond, and a lot of times overcompensate to make sure that you never have to go through that same experience of humiliation, failure, downfall, and then you overcompensate in other areas. And then maybe for some people, they have different experiences that make them really go into their shell because they feel like, I don't have anything valuable to say or to bring to the table, or some of us might be raised to be seen and not heard. So it can all tie into when you get to your adult years and you're making decisions, and you are called to have a seat at the table and to present something amongst your peers for decision making or for problem solving, or even for your own life and the things that will help you to be prosperous. You will oftentimes maybe find yourself, you don't probably do it actively, but subconsciously, that association has been registered in your mind, in your heart, in your soul, that I don't like the feeling of failure, or I don't like the feeling of rejection. It's humiliating. So that humiliation will outweigh the possibility of success, the possibility of positive reinforcement. Especially if, that instance or example that I was giving was just, a hypothetical one-time thing. But if it's on your day-to-day activities that you're constantly being told, like, you don't listen, you're stubborn, you're this, you're that, you will feel like I'm more of a problem than I am an asset in this environment. So let me just kind of, either you find some children, in their adolescence, they become more sneaky. So I'll be one way in front of my parents, but then, when I'm with my friends, I'm a different way. And that also bleeds into their decisions. They'll pick friends that won't reprimand them, but that will rather influence them to do things that make them feel like I have freedom. Okay. So I think that in doing all of these reflections and us just being honest with ourselves about some of the experiences we had in those very pivotal, formidable developmental years, that's the first step in really discovering your potential as far as confidence, and also the calling that God has had on your life, void of what your parents have told you, your peers have told you, or what you have started to tell yourself.
Okay. All right. Jumping from where Akosia landed, Tina, is it wrong to instruct these young people that, look, you can't go around pleasing everybody. You need to take care of yourself?
No,
am I wrong?
Not.
Am I wrong in saying that?
Nope, not at all.
Okay, go ahead. Why am I not wrong?
I mean, because you have to understand that everybody's purpose.
Well, whatever you say, please use your personal examples.
Okay.
Right.
I think that it's important to know that everybody's purpose is different. So if you go around pleasing other people, you may not even live to your full potential because you're just worried about the satisfaction of the next man.
Yeah.
If you know that God has ordained you to be in this world, has written something about you, your future, and you know that purpose, like it would take a lot. If you're really confident in that walk, it would take a lot for somebody to put you down. And I always like to use like an example, not to say anything bad about what I'm about to say, but just certain weight in different products, right? I myself can confidently walk into a Toyota dealership looking for a vehicle, and I will ask for a discount without a second doubt. It wouldn't move me. I wouldn't feel like I've done anything wrong, but I wouldn't dare walk into Lamborghini and do that, because they know the value of their product and their item that they don't even advertise, for Christ's sake. But if you believe and know the value of yourself, nothing can reduce it. Nothing. You can never reduce it at a discounted rate just to please somebody else.
Sister.
Hi. Oh.
Go ahead.
So for me, that's how I look at it. I've realized that, and obviously I didn't have this confidence, as I do now. It's not that I had insecurities, but the way I felt obviously a couple of years ago is not how I feel now, because as the day goes by and the years go by, you've realized that, okay, there's something bigger. There's something else that you need to do and you need to fulfill. As I'm sitting over here right now, there's a lot of things that I have planned in place that nobody can talk me off of it, and nobody can tell me otherwise, because I've prayed about it. I'm confident enough to know that I am walking in the right purpose. If you listen to other people on what they say, they will literally redirect you, away from your purpose, and you will just end up losing it totally. So it's important to just make a note of that mentally.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let me come to my guys, man. Lawrence, I want you to take this. Elijah, when he had done this miracle on the mountain, killing the prophets, other prophets, and Jezebel came after him, he ran away. He ran, and he even prayed that God take him out. His self-esteem went down because of the pressure Jezebel was putting on him. Our own grandfather Elijah. Now, as a young man, what are some of the things that will devalue you? Devalue your self-esteem?
Wow. Well, yeah, Elijah, that was always one of my favorite people in the Bible. That always got me hyped up whenever I read about Elijah.
Yeah.
But one of the things that will, as a young man, definitely that damages your self-worth, self-esteem is porn. Looking at stuff you shouldn't be looking at.
Yeah.
It feels good in the moment or whatever, but it takes away your strength, takes away you're doing wrong. I don't care who you are, right from wrong. You're doing something wrong, and you're going to feel guilty. You're going to feel shame. And no matter how small it is, it will damage your self-esteem, your ability to go out and make moves and get things done. So I would say porn is one thing. Following people, one of my verses that I was thinking of for this was Psalm chapter 1, verse 1.
Mm-hmm.
It says, "Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly." So again, choosing the right people to be around, that is huge for self-esteem. Because when I grew up, most of the people I hung around were the guys that, they were doing things that you could go to jail for and doing things that could get you killed. And if you try to do the right thing, those same people who are like, "Yeah, man, you my man," all of a sudden you're a horrible person for trying to do the right thing. And if you stay around those people long enough, when they do something wrong, you're going to go down with them. And you're going to mess up your purpose. You're going to mess up your future. And that really damages your self-esteem. And like following rules, for instance, a lot of times some people we're around, they don't think the rules matter. They don't think things really is that big a deal. And even something as simple as, I don't know, like getting your car registered on time. If you don't do that, that your car is unregistered and the cops could stop you and give you a ticket. That damages your self-esteem a little bit. All the little things add up. There's a book called The Compound Effect. And it talks about how every little decision adds up to the life that you currently have now. And whether it be for good or bad, either you're going to go up or you're going to go down. And every bad decision you make damages your self-esteem. It damages your self-worth. But on the converse side, every good decision you make is all a choice. Every good decision you make, just the fact that you're trying to make the right decision, that builds your self-esteem up. And when you overcome that fear, when you overcome that pull from society, that pull from your peers or wherever you are, and you overcome that pull to do the wrong thing or not do anything, and you do what's right and you go for your purpose and you become that doctor, you become that lawyer, you just do the right thing. Something as simple as giving somebody a compliment, that builds your self-esteem. And God, I read a book about, in one of the powerful statements, it says, never underestimate the power of showing somebody that they matter. Something as simple as that. And the next day when I went to church, God started challenging me to just start encouraging people more. And so I went to the pastor and I was like, "You're going to have a great sermon. You're going to do a great message today." And he felt good, but I was like about to explode with like, "Yeah, I did it," because I was scared to say something. But I overcame that fear, and that just made me feel great. It was deeper than just feeling good about yourself. It's a lot deeper than that. And I just felt great. So doing the right thing, overcoming your fears, overcoming challenges, overcoming the pull of society to do the wrong thing and to get mad and pissed off and all this other stuff, overcoming those things and choosing to go the opposite direction. that builds your self-esteem. And the last thing is one of my mentors, he always says, observe the masses and do the opposite. And I learned that.
Can you say that again? Can you repeat that, please?
He said, observe the masses and do the opposite.
Okay.
So because usually the masses are always wrong.
Yeah.
It takes, anybody can just float downstream. And go back to that scripture, Psalm 1. It talks about blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the
ungodly.
And the word blessed means happy. You want to be happy, don't walk in the counsel of the ungodly. And first you got to get knowledge and know what is ungodly and what is godly. So yeah, I'll stop right there.
Man, true that. Look, I'm coming to you. I know you're a hardworking man. And I tell people, lazy people most of the time have low self-esteem, okay? Now, in your process of going through pharmacy school, what were some of the challenges in trying to work hard that you faced? And did that deter you or that motivated you to keep going?
What were some of the challenges? I would say, first off, starting pharmacy school was the biggest challenge because all through my life, I had basically been comfortable in school. You know, I believe that there were times where I didn't have to like study that much, put in that much effort, and I would go write an exam and, you know, I would pass it, I would get an A. And so starting pharmacy school itself was like the first biggest challenge. And I remember, I'll never forget this one. First year, I think it was a month or two into it. It was my second exam in one of my classes, and I had to, they gave us studying guides, but the professor gave us 3 different studying guides, one for the first exam, one for the second exam, and one for the final. And when I was studying, I ended up studying for the final versus studying for the second exam. So I went to the exam hall. A couple minutes before the exam, I was asking my friends questions, and they were just like, it doesn't seem like you studied what you were supposed to study. So I entered the exam hall, sat down. 20 minutes in, I realized there's not much I can do to change this exam. So I just quickly chose as many answers as I could choose, got out, sat in my car in Baltimore, and drove straight back to my dad's house. And when I went, he was just the only one home. And I sat down. He came out, he's like, how is everything? And I said, I'm done. I'm not going back to pharmacy school again. This is way too difficult. And for him,
you quit pharmacy school?
Yes, for like 5 seconds. But for him, he thought it was a joke. He thought it was funny. And, you know, he laughed, went in, got ready, and then left for work. So I had to pick up myself and then get back to school because the person I was coming to cry to didn't even realize I was crying in the first place. So when I went to school, I went to the professor of the class, talked to him, and he didn't offer much help. All he said was, if I have any problems, I should talk to an advisor. So I started seeing a counselor in school, and honestly, that changed everything. Oftentimes as Christians, because we've had so much success doing the same thing, when we hit hardship, we start to question, we start to question God. We start to question if it's in God's plan, and I remember that thinking about it, one Bible verse one Bible story that came into my head was when David and his men went to war, and then the Amalekites came behind David, took David's wife, burnt the wives of the warriors, and then left. And then when David came, instead of him to, go to the prophet and say, hey, can you pray to God? He asked the prophet to give him the robe for him to speak to God directly. So it was at that point that for me, I had to change my whole approach. I had to change how I was studying. I had to change when I started studying for exam. I started seeing a counselor weekly or sometimes bi-weekly, talking to them about my problems, talking to them about the struggles in pharmacy school. Because pharmacy school is professional school in general is very, very draining. You don't have time for family. You don't have time for yourself. You don't have time to study. but then weirdly, you kind of have to pick up hours to get money, to survive, or else you take so much school loans. So, yeah. So the whole point of like, doing what David did, so changing the whole approach, studying before class, studying after class, studying more hours, and copious amounts of caffeine also. Everything got back, into like the usual cruise, and I was able to get through it. So I think as Christians, we need to understand that even though God wants us to be the head and not the tail, as the head, there are sometimes where we're going to face difficult decisions. I mean, we're going to face things that are not always going to be smooth. I mean, no one thought this year was going to turn out the way it did. But, we found ways to adapt. So when you meet a hardship, before you quit, before you change your mind, before you get down on yourself, you need to try something different. Talk to God, but try something different while you're talking to God. And because you can say, I have faith that I'm going to pass this class and not put in any work. Faith without works.
No.
So yeah, I think for me, changing my whole approach and still having like an awesome support system and knowing when to talk to the my professor, because that was the first time I ever talked to my professor since I was in kindergarten, any teacher at all. So knowing when to talk to a professor and knowing when to see a counselor too was great, and it helped me, go through this pharmacy school.
Yeah, no wonder after church service you're gone. You don't talk to nobody. All right, okay, lawyer, let me come to you, man. I know your heart has been broken before. Okay, all right, but let me come to and you picked yourself up.
Sure.
But I want to know about your first experience in a courtroom.
Okay.
How did that go? I mean, how was that like? I mean, in relation to your self-esteem. In building that up.
All right. So I guess I'll premise it with what Colby said, and I think it applies across the board. But, when you enter professional school, it's very different. Like, there's some things you're not very familiar with. So for my profession, I went to University of Maryland Law in Baltimore, where in a class of about 255 people, there were 4 Black males who graduated, me being one of the 4 Black males. So when you come in your first year of law school, that is literally, you see a sea of, I would say of white, you know what I mean? And then, so that itself is a little intimidating going forward. So then after that, we have what we call type A's or gunners in law school. And I'm sure it applies to other professions as well, where these people, these gunners are striving literally to be the top of their class. They're striving to get the top jobs in the top firms. So the competition, literally from the first day you walk into lecture hall, you see it, you recognize it. And it's a shock to you because, a lot of people, they come from colleges and, it's a very different environment. And so, you have to kind of develop this confidence, and confidence is like a feeling of self-assurance, arising from appreciating like your own or one's own ability or qualities. So when you're surrounded by all of these people, the first thing you do is realize you're here for the exact same reason they are here. You know why you're here. You have to have confidence in your abilities. So going through that for law school for 3 years, you kind of develop it. You do some mock trials, which is like, fake court trials to get you kind of used to it. But to get directly to your question, I was a former prosecutor / district attorney in Baltimore City. And Baltimore City is, you guys probably know, it's no joke. There's a lot of stuff that happens in Baltimore.
True.
So, the volume is a lot. So when I remember the first day, the first night before I had my first docket, my first trial, I was terrified. I mean, completely shook. I had no idea, because what they do is they kind of just throw you into the wolves. That you do your training for 1 week, and then you're scheduled to appear in court probably 3 days later. But I mean, all the training in the world won't prep you from when you have to actually go to the courtroom and stand in front of a judge and have all these other people behind you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's completely different. You can do all the mock trials you want, but you won't be ready for that. So I remember the night before, I had a traffic docket, and that's essentially just, you know, traffic cases. A lot of you guys have probably been in traffic dock court before for like speeding or something like that, you know, suspended license, anything like that. So I remember I was in my office and I had one coworker, Meso, and he was actually another African-American male at the office. And he would stay late. And I was terrified because I didn't know what to expect. And so I went to his office, and this was around 8:30. And I asked him, could you give me a rundown of what I'm supposed to say? What is the judge going to say to me? Like when I first get into the courtroom, how do I introduce myself? How do I just call the first case? All of these things. And he just sat down and he was like, yeah, sit down. We'll run through it. I've done this before, so I'll give you an idea of how it's supposed to go. And so that actually calmed my nerves, I mean, tenfold. I was still very shook going in, but it definitely helped. So finding good people, good friends or coworkers is definitely very important. I mean, not everybody's going to be willing to help you, but finding some people, it could be one person, two people, however, that really help you. So we ran through it. I mean, I went to bed that night. I was still terrified. I think I even fell asleep probably at like 4:35 a.m. and I had to get up at like 6:30 to go to the courthouse. You know what I mean? Because your nerves, like you're just thinking like, okay. So the morning of, you know, you get to the bench, which is where the attorneys stand, and you know, defense is at their table. The judge comes out at 8:30 a.m. on the dot, and you know, he just looks at you. He says, "Okay, counsel, call the cases." So at this point, you know, it's kind of like as I said, confidence is a self-assurance in like your own ability. So at this point, you kind of have to just go with what you know. You know, I mean, you kind of have to. I was told one time, I listened to a TED Talk, and they said you have to fake it till you make it to some degree. And so when the judge had told me, okay, counsel, we're ready, you know, I called the case, and then, you know, they came up. They ask you questions, but when you are ready, when you have some sort of confidence, even if you're wrong, when you look like you know what you're doing, you know, it makes a very big difference. It makes a very big difference. So, you know, I just went up there and I called the cases as I thought I was doing them correctly. You know what I mean? And once you get into the groove, you call one case, two case, 5 cases, 20 cases, it kind of starts to flow a little bit easier. So it's definitely a lot of trial and error.
Okay.
You know, your first time around, at least from my experience, but I'm sure it goes across the board. But you eventually pick up, you know what I mean? Pick up what it is, and then from there, you just have to kind of like humble yourself a little bit and, you know, ask people. You know what I mean? Don't be shy. Don't be scared to ask for help. Don't be scared to put yourself out there. Even if it's people who you're not comfortable with talking. Not everybody's going to be your friend. Not everyone's going to want to help you. But there will be people out there who are there. But the thing is, you have to humble yourself. And then doing that, I think it builds that confidence. You know, that experience that you go through.
All right. Okay. So from what you're saying, then self-esteem and confidence building is just like a muscle. You have to keep using it. And the more you use it, the more it gets stronger.
Yes, sir. It's semantics. It's semantics. Go through it. You know what I mean? And it builds stronger to the point where, like, you know what you're doing. You know what I mean? Even if you don't know exactly what you're doing, you have an idea of what you're doing. You're not going to go in there blindly, not knowing what you're doing. So just like going to the gym, you lift weights, you lift 20 pounds. Next week, you lift 30 pounds. You know what I mean? You call these cases. Then you call so many more cases the next week. And then you call so many more cases the next week, to the point where, like, it builds your confidence. So when you get up there, and to the point where I was going up to court, you know what I mean? I was calling these cases with all these people, judges asking me questions, and it doesn't faze me anymore.
Okay. So ladies and gentlemen, we're going to open the lines, but I'm going to ask this last question to my panel, and Dr. Bonso, maybe you can start. And it's in relation to risk-taking. Risk-taking. Yeah. How does that come into play when we're talking about self-esteem?
I think one thing that holds us all back is fear, right? If you're afraid of the unknown, we tend to shut down and not want to pursue or not even give it a try. And that's the risk you're going to take. You have to do it in order to know you'll be successful. If you don't do it, how are you going to know if you're ever going to succeed at it? So we shouldn't allow fear to kind of take a hold of. I think if you get rid of the fear, you'll be able to move forward. And I think for all of us, you have to take the risk. Again, successful people do not wake up overnight and become successful. They probably have to try several times. And what does success mean to you, right? Success for me is me knowing I want something and I'm going to go after it. Once I'm able to achieve it, that's success to me. You know what I mean? So yeah. I have to take that risk. I have to put myself out there, and I'm going to go for it. I think, again, it's something that you have to want it bad enough that you're going to do it. At the end of the day, what are we all looking for? We're all looking to be successful. We're all looking to be better than what our parents were, right? We all want to get to a place where we're going to be comfortable enough that our kids will be comfortable, our grandkids will be comfortable. So what does that mean for you? Does that mean that you're going to go out there and you're going to, again, take a risk? You're going to go out there and shatter all these barriers that people have put in front of us. You're going to go for it. You have to want to do it. I know that it's all we talk about the self-esteem and all that, but if you're not willing, if you're not thirsty enough, you're not going to go for it. So if you're willing, you're thirsty, you're going to go after it. And I think, because the fear is going to be there. Every step of the way you're going to have it. Your first job, the fear of like he was just describing his first courtroom case. My first case, putting a child to sleep. My first case, the fear is never going to go away, but you're not going to let that overtake you. You're going to go for it. You're going to do your job. And again, it's going to come because over time, you're going to be so good at it that it becomes a walk in the park. Okay. But again, take the fear out, take that risk, go out there and go get it. Yeah. That's all I have to add.
Okay. Anybody wants to add something to it on the risk?
I'll just say that,
Ben, can you let Lawrence go? Then?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, Lawrence, go ahead.
I was going to say that one of the things I've learned is that courage is not the absence of fear, but courage is, even if you have the fear, you do it. You do the thing anyway. So that's all I was going to say.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, Ben, quick.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, kind of picking back of Lawrence, you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable to a certain degree before you get to that point where you're very confident and comfortable.
Akosia.
I think they covered it perfectly.
Tina, you've taken some risk.
I have. I mean.
Yeah, I know you have. Yeah, I know.
I've taken quite a few risks, but I think that is overall, that is the point of trying, of attempting to, excel in one department or the other is by trying to do it. It may not work the first time, but just keep on trying and eventually you're going to break through and make it. So yes, it's just a matter of sometimes you have to re-strategize. Maybe, like I said, we grow every day. So maybe what you attempted to do yesterday, it was with a different mindset. And today is a different day and you're more mature, you know better, you've learned. So you re-strategize. Well, you learn from others. You see what other people have done. And thank God for social media, because I think, there are pros and cons to everything, but there's some pros in social media because people are more outspoken about their past, what they've done, how they've made it, what they went through. So you get to learn from all of that and put it together. And nowadays, I can say that it's possible to try your first time and succeed. You're not going to always fail now, based on everybody else and how other people have made it. You learn from all of that and see what you can put together and then try again.
Mm-hmm. All right, so Sax, if we have questions from the audience, you can start putting them on. If anybody has a question and if they want to throw it to a particular person, they can go ahead. Is he out there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah.
So I think Osako there has a question, and
why you have to be the first to ask a question?
no, it's not me. It's Osako there.
Okay, go ahead.
So the question is: was there a time in your life where your confidence came out as arrogance?
Is it directed to a particular person?
No, anyone can answer that.
Okay. Guys, anybody wants to pick it up?
I have an experience where it wasn't necessarily arrogance, but it did come off as a threat. So maybe it was interpreted as arrogance, but there's also like a race layer to it that was for the last Zoom session. So I'll leave it, at that. But my experience was, in the corporate world, one of the teams that I worked on last year, so we had a new lead joining the team. She came from a different firm, and I was pretty much like assigned to tag team with her and pretty much show her the ropes, the tools that we use, the solutions we're providing, everything about the client. And so I was doing that. And then slowly over time, I realized that some of the tasks started to be transitioned into more of, she would do like, oh no, I'll take care of it. Oh no, I'll take care of it. And then I got to a point where I was like, well, I don't have anything else to do, So it was a little bit, I was already sensing the vibe and what she was trying to do because I've dealt with, flat out to say, like, just white people in, the corporate world and how they can go about asserting themselves. But I just wasn't expecting it because of how open and transparent she was being with me, sharing everything about her personal life, sometimes calling me, crying that like she feels like we don't like her because she's new or she might lose her job or whatever. And I would have to really just reinforce her and tell her like, look, this is what I do. This is how I'm able to, stay on top of things, sharing those kind of like, tips, tricks, secrets with her. And then what actually happened is that another team member who was above her was transitioning out of our team. So it was very obvious that the decision was between myself and her for who was going to be the lead. So I think when she kind of started to realize that, that's when things changed. So she did become the lead because she had a lot more experience than me, but the proposal was that we would kind of be like co-leads, if you will. And so to make a very long story short, one day, there was a little bit of tension building and I was pulled to the side by her after a meeting. And what she told me was, I'm going to tell you guys verbatim what she said. Your confidence makes me really uncomfortable. And when we're in meetings with a client, you have a very colorful vocabulary. I don't know if everybody's able to, take that very well. I think you should dumb it down a little bit. And I've also noticed that when we're in our stand-up meetings, like you have perfect posture, can be very domineering. So I would prefer the version of Akusia where like, when we're talking one-on-one, how you are with me, because that version of you is so much more likable. The end.
Oh my goodness.
So talk about a shot at confidence, right? So that took a shot at my confidence as well, because all of these things she told me, I never heard in my life before. So it was like, do I know myself? Do I need to rediscover like, what is going on? And I've never had the intent of coming off that way, right? So while her account was absolutely false, like I said in the beginning, confidence doesn't mean you take it like as, well, I'm prideful and I know my way and my way is right, so that's that. I still had to listen to what she was saying with a grain of salt. I did ask her and let her know very point blank period that like, this is foreign to me. I don't identify with anything you're labeling me with, but do you have any tips on ways that these things could be changed? And she had nothing, so that kind of reinforced to me that like, okay, it's just a Karen, assert herself in the office. But I did, I would say that I didn't like defend but I think she could probably see I was going into my shell a little bit. I didn't I wasn't defensive, but I definitely didn't just let her talk to me anyhow. I did have to ask her questions about why she felt this way. I did have to reinforce what my intentions are and that it's not to make anyone uncomfortable. And I did have to remind her that this becomes something that other team members are coming back with. Let's address it in a different way. But since you're the only person who feels this way, let's make a clear separation between opinion and reality.
Mm.
So going away from that, though, I did have to spend a lot of time in reflecting because I realized that it's not everybody who can handle the confidence that we carry. And honestly, it could be factors beyond how I speak. It could be the God in me that makes her just feel so uncomfortable and just uneasy and slimy. Like, what is it about her, you know? And I mean, I could be silent in a room, and any of you could be silent in a room. But the fact that you have that light, that calling, that dignity in your life where, you know, the creator of the universe made you on the last day and he said he was pleased and he made you in his likeness, that has been transferred to you. So you also have to carry that, like, I'm very pleased with who I am and how I was created. So when we're not, it's like you're grieving God and he's like, what? I made no mistakes here. So you do have to walk in that light and continue to discover it and continue to understand, God, what is my purpose? Why did you put me on that team? Why did you, you know, have me be in this situation with her? But what I gained from that experience and how the Lord was able to use me in other ways and speak to me, I'm really glad that it happened because it really did also help me to scale my expression of my confidence, not change it, but scale it to understand that I'm not supposed to change myself for anybody else's likeness, but I do have to be mindful and a little bit extra careful, kind of like have my own back in a way in this setting. So ultimately, I switched over to another team, a far better team. She did get promoted, which I didn't know she was trying to get a promotion. But then her team collapsed like 3 months later, and I was like sitting in the corner with a smile on my face. So.
I could say that was wrong. All right, yeah. Do we have another question? Yeah.
Yeah, there's another question from Yao Sarkodie again. And
hold on. Are you picking other people's question and putting your name on it or what?
No, it's just it's not me. It's Yao Sarkodie. Maybe he is.
Are you giving people the opportunity to ask questions, please? I want other people to.
Yeah,
also.
yeah.
Okay.
I put it on there. No one is asking a question.
Okay, go ahead. And
so he says, to my knowledge, there's a thin line between confidence and arrogance. How do you spot the difference and how do you deal with it?
Okay. Anybody wants to pick it up? It's a thin line between arrogance and confidence. Anybody wants to pick it up?
Yeah, I say the thin line is if you find someone, they're confident, but they're not always talking about themselves. Like if you find people, everything they do, everything they say, it's about me. It's about what I did. I did this. I did that. I'm this. I'm so fly. I'm all this stuff, whatever. Then that's kind of where you start crossing the line into arrogance. Whereas confidence is just, you're not, the focus is not so much on you. It's more on like what you're doing, the ability, like this is the project we have to do. So let's get it done. You know, I can do this or whatever. But when you start like lifting yourself up and boosting yourself too much, then that's where the line begins to get crossed, I think.
Okay, so let me add this to it. I will use David's example with a war against the Philistines. You know, when David came out and he was so angry that the people of Israel couldn't do anything with Goliath. And he came out and he said, who is this uncircumcised Philistine? Now, he wasn't being cocky. He was confident in the God that he said. You know, he knew very well God's got his back. You know, so he could speak that way. So that was not arrogance. That was David saying that, you know what, I have a backbone. I have someone behind me and I can speak this way. And I think it's the same with us. If you know the God that you serve, I mean, sometimes people might take that to be arrogance. But if you're speaking based on what God has said who you are going to be, it's not arrogance. It's just being confident in who you are and stepping up and doing what you have to do. Anybody wants to add something before we take our next question? Please, yeah, please, if you can put Pastor on the line, if he's on. Or we can have another question. Anybody has a question?
Someone raised their hand. Yeah.
Can you put them on, please?
Lady called, yeah. She raised her hand.
Oh my gosh. I'm
Put
sorry.
it through.
Sir, it's Nana, yeah. Just
okay.
I guess my question, so sometimes for me going to college, like being out of state and coming back, like I feel like when I went to college, I was able to like figure out who I was and like my identity in Christ, etc. And then coming back, there's a lot of decisions that like I had to make, and there's certain things that I had to do in order for me to live the life and stay true to myself. So like one of the biggest issues I feel like in the African community is when, you know, it's like when you're young and people are sending you, I feel like me and Jenna has had this conversation, but like you have a lot of African parents who would send you to places, and once you start telling them like, oh, I can't do it or stuff like that, not out of disrespect, but like out of, you know, just inconvenience, they think that you're so I don't even know the English word for it, but it's like you're too prideful in that sense. But I guess my question would be, how would you know, what are the things that, like, what, I guess I don't even know how to phrase this question, but what are the things that African parents could do, or people could educate African parents to know, for them to know that, you know, once we go to college, we're not the same people from high school. We're not like, pretty much like, we're not we're not who we are, and we're not as timid as we used to be. So how, like, can we ensure that, you know, a lot of people in the youth, when they're fully confident in themselves and they're finding who they are, that they're not put down by, you know, all people in church for doing you know, things that they feel like they need to do to really show who they are as people. I hope my question made sense.
Somebody wants to pick it up.
Your question makes a lot of sense. I think I'll try to help out.
Candy, we can. Where's your video?
Because I'm walking around. Sorry.
Please forgive her. I pulled her out from her vacation. She's on vacation right now, somewhere unfamiliar.
Yeah, I think for your parents, I think one thing you have to do as an individual is, you know, when certain decisions have to be made and they feel like you are doing it out of, you know, like you said, that's a wabasu, or you think because you've gone away and you've established yourself, you come back and they can't tell you what to do. You have to sit them down and actually talk to them. I think when you have to make a call, you say, Mom, you know, I know in the past this is how it used to be. You guys made the decision, but at this point, at my age, I would like to chime in, or I'd like to give you my opinion of what I think is best for me. Because you know you, and they probably don't know you anymore. Not that they don't know you, but you've grown. And as you're coming in your own, you have to let them know that. You have to let them see that. Yes, you will come to them every now and then for advice and, you know, for them to sort of, what's the word? Approve. However, at this age or at this stage in your life, you are definitely one that, you know, has to make the call at the end of the day. And you have to be polite about it. You have to be respectful, because, you know, African parents always want to have control over you till you're probably dead. And I'm saying that because I'm 40 years old and my mom still calls me to this day to try to run my life. And each time, you know, we have to talk and we have to go back, and I have to try to reinforce that, okay, you know, she's no longer my caretaker, and I have to make decisions on my own. But you have to be respectful. But again, you have to kind of have a dialogue. Don't just let it be a one-way conversation where they're always talking to you. or talking at you. Rather, you should have a discussion and say, hey, Ma, I think, I want to approach you this way. I think this would be best for me. You know what I mean? And you're not doing it disrespectfully, but again, you're coming across as someone who wants to have their voice be heard. And they will listen. I mean, I think after a while, they start to listen to us. But you have to be, again, it probably comes along with confidence as well. If you know what you're talking about, they'll probably believe you, and they'll probably, kind of let you have your own. But that's a way to approach it. Have a conversation with them.
Just to piggyback off that, Pastor Ernest, I know that I saw Frida said that most African parents equate being outspoken as rude or arrogant. Even with me, where I am now, 29 years old, my parents, I remember my parents had told me,
don't do it, don't do it, boy.
I remember back when I was in high school, they said, once you graduate from college, then, you're an adult, you can do whatever you want. And then, I graduated from college and I went to law school. Once you graduate from law school, we're not going to tell you anything. You can do as you please. And here I am,
That's why they beat
8
you.
years later, nothing has changed. But I do think that, and this may be also a different conversation, I do think that a big part of it does stem from the parents and their understanding of it. They have to see you as an adult, for lack of a better word. They have to see you as a more mature individual. And that could come from what Dr. Usu was saying, is just sitting down and having a conversation with them, not letting them talk at you, or, you know what I mean, but letting them hear you is a very big thing. Whether they hear that or understand that, that's beyond your control. You know what I mean? Because everybody is who they are at the end of the day. But, when it boils down to it, one, be respectful, and two, at the end of the day, I mean, Nana, I know you, I mean, you're at UVA, you're going through it right now with school and everything, but you have to kind of just realize that, and this is just my personal advice, that you are living, you're literally directing your own path right now. You know what I mean? And that, you come to them for advice and guidance, and they'll give you that. They'll always be there, but some things they may not approve of, or they may not, agree with, but at the end of the day, what's best for you. As long as you heed advice and you're respectful with it, and, you have their support, but others' support, you go forward with what you think is best, as long as it's in line with, what your Christian values are and what's important to you. So I don't think that you shouldn't allow it to be an obstacle, something to obscure your path, but, just be cognizant of the fact that you are an adult. This is your life where you are now, and that going forward, whatever decision you want to make, you address it to them, and then, you kind of take it as it comes. Every parent is different. Every parent is very different. So, keep that in mind.
Okay. Is Pastor on? Adjoa, is Pastor on? Okay. Yeah, if we have another question.
Oh, I wanted to quickly add something to what Ben was saying.
Good. Go ahead.
So basically the thing is, you always read the room, because like Ben said, every parent is different. So if your friend approached something one way with their parent, it doesn't mean it's going to work with your parent. That's one thing. And another thing that I have seen, that's maybe I'm projecting, but I feel like sometimes our parents, some of the things they object to largely, sometimes it's just out of one, fear, and sometimes not just understanding. So let's just say, and they know of a friend whose kid had tried to get into medical school like for 6 years and it's not working. The moment you mention medical school, they're going to shut you down, like regardless of how good of a student you are. So I think it's just read the room. So know how to talk to your parents. Is it like find a way to, get them to see it from your perspective? And then once you do that, then you let them understand that you know what you're doing, and you would let them know everything that is going on. Because some parents, there's always a story they know about someone who tried to do what you were doing and failed, and hence they're going to tell you no. Always. That one child who got a piercing and got arrested, and that one story. So I think it's just to find a way to, because my dad, for me, how I talk to my dad is talk to him about random things, politics, sports. Then I'm like, hey, I'm failing this class. And then we talk about it. Mm-hmm. So just to find out how to get your parent to sit down with you and talk. And eventually, once they spot your actions, once they see how you're talking, if you're showing them respect, they're going to sit down and talk to you. I mean, and if you have a plan, because I always say if you have a plan, it takes a lot of manpower for someone to say, I have listened to your plan, it doesn't make sense to me. As far as you come to them with a plan, they're most likely going to listen.
Okay. All right. I have a question, and my question is, for me, I feel people who stay in other people's business are telling me they have a low self-esteem. Am I right or wrong? How is staying out of people's business
Out?
and concentrating on yourself boost your self-esteem?
I mean, I guess it would depend on the aspect, but some people can be in other people's business because they care. They truly want to see them succeed and win. So you're more involved in what they're doing, not because you are unfocused on what you're working on. But it could, I mean, I'm sure you are involved in your kids' business because you want to see them do well.
No, I'm talking about in relation to, finding out what is going on every time with Tina. They visit your social media thing. They talking about you. And they don't focus on themselves to build themselves up, but rather want to see what is going on in somebody else's life.
Well, I'll tell you this. I don't think that all of us can make it. God, everybody has different purposes. That's the reason why some people look up to Beyonce. Every single day they check up on her. If she doesn't post, they are all up in her business. They're gonna be people that are just gonna be the audience in this life. To me, as much as, that's their problem. Is if that's what you want to do, stalk me and watch me do me and be successful and be good, I'm fine with that. If you're just a fan. Some people are just going to be fans. They're just going to be subscribers. These are the kind of people that are going to be part of the walk that we're in. Not everybody is going to be built for success or built to make it, to break through. God built some people to watch us, to be fans, to be something. So I'm down.
Yeah, well said.
Anybody wants to pick it up?
No, I think sometimes, the wrong energy, like what do you plan on gaining by going to stalk someone's page and looking to see how successful they are, or like what are you going to benefit out of that? Mm-hmm. That's focusing your energy on the wrong thing, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you should be worried about you and what your next move is going to be, not what someone else is doing. I think that might come with maturity. If you have your stuff together, why do you care what the next man is doing? Why do you care what the other person? Why even go bother and spend that energy on that person? So at the end of the day, I mean, I think it's you ground yourself in what you want and what you want to do, and stop focusing on the next man. You know what I mean? So I think that's the wrong energy. That you shouldn't even pay attention to that. And don't compare yourself to anyone, because everybody's walk is different, completely different. You seeing someone, getting into the best schools or doing all this great, that's great. But put that energy on yourself and say, you know what? If channel that energy to yourself and say, okay, if this person can do it, hell yeah, I can do it. I'm going to go for it. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously the right set of mind and not going for something you're not capable of. I mean, obviously if you don't try, you'll never know. But what I'm trying to say is there's no reason for you to focus on other people if you're not doing the right things for yourself. Do you know what I mean? So put that energy in yourself. The time that you're spending looking at other people's social media stuff, how about you build yourself and stop focusing on that? But anyway, yeah, that's all.
See, me and mommy think alike. Anybody wants to pick it up?
Yeah.
Oh, I see Pastor got on. Okay, go ahead.
I sometimes feel like some people, or generally, I sometimes run away from things. I run away from things that let's just say I am dealing with something, and the way to run away from it is to just go check on somebody else, just not be in my business to deal with my problems. And at a certain point, I think people do that as a coping mechanism, and then eventually becomes a habit. And it sometimes tends to build this kind of always trying to seek a comparison whenever things don't go well in their life. So let's just say we're all in pharmacy school, and then if maybe I'm not going to graduate, or I'm not going to graduate on time, then now I am going to look for somebody else who wouldn't graduate or graduate on time with me, or somebody else who's not going to pass their license with me, just so that they would not think about it as I have a problem of passing this exam that I need to get ready for, but then they would think of it as we are all in the same boat, and hence I am not going to deal with my personal problem. So I think it might be less of a self-esteem thing and more of just a bad coping mechanism thing for some people.
So having people going through the same thing makes them feel better. They need a company.
Yes.
All right. Okay. So, do we have another question? And then I can bring Pastor on. Pastor, we've been talking about self-esteem, and I know you were busy with something else, but since we have you on, any little thing you want to give us in relation to self-esteem for the young adult Christian? You have to unmute yourself.
Sorry. Okay. Now I muted myself. Okay. I guess I wanted you to see me, but not to hear me. Okay. Well, all I'm going to say is probably because I'm older than most of you, I have seen a lot more. So probably my experience have more informed my view. But my thinking about self-esteem is the key for me is to find out who I am in Christ, what Christ wants me to be. And once I'm convinced that is where God wants me to be or who he wants me to be, I believe I can do it, and I'll do it. You can't be all things. Once you are human, you have weaknesses, you have strengths. And sometimes the conventional thinking in life is that you should work on your weaknesses. It's not always true. Because if God does not gift you certain things, or certain things are not your strength, they are not meant for you, there's no point in trying to be those things. Okay. But in doing that, be very careful that you don't make excuses to be mediocre. Because you say, oh, I'm not blessed, I'm not gifted to do this, so I won't do it. That is also a mistake. So my thing is, be your best. Do your best in everything that you do. Put out your best. In some things, your best will not be enough to excel. So my point is, don't waste your time there. And I think in self-esteem, the key thing is not to listen to what people say about you. Because there are some people in this world whose calling and mission is to just put you down so that you don't, achieve your full potential. They try to measure you by their own standard. And through my life, I've come across a few of those. And I've always said, I want to prove them wrong. When my children were younger, I used to tell them that when you have a teacher who says you can't do it, you want to pass their course just to embarrass them, And so I like to look at it more from the spiritual point of view, that God is with me. He's giving me certain talents. He has certain things he wants me to accomplish, and I can do all of those things. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. But the bottom line is, I won't listen to people. If I find that something is just not working, I want to leave it and focus my strengths on the things I can do well. And I think also that with the Holy Spirit in you, sometimes you don't realize it. For example, Pastor Ernest was there, but I don't know about the rest of you. Some time ago, we had a leadership retreat, and I think Dr. Brickman was leading us, and he had to have a personality test. I don't remember, Pastor. And I actually came out as an introvert. And some people were shocked. But they told us, senior pastor, no, you have to be an introvert to do this job. I am a serious introvert.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yes, but I don't allow it to limit me.
Yeah.
I still go out and do what I believe God has purpose for me to do. And for the young people, that's all I say. In life, God purpose to do something. I mean, nobody thought David could be king, because when they were even calling people to be anointed, he was left there. But look at what the servants of Saul said about him. The man is a man of war. He's talented in music. He is gifted he had a combination of gifts that ordinary people don't have. Mm. And so my thing is, when I'm in Christ, I'm not ordinary anymore. And that's my attitude. And that's what I think you as young people should do. The scripture I think I've taught on this in Revive before, that no man despise your youth. Life is not a civil service thing where, you want to respect people and all that, but don't allow anybody to tell you that just because you are young, you can't do certain things. I mean, when I was in high school, we actually went out to middle schools in our neighborhood and talked to the headmasters to allow us to come and preach in the schools, and we were preaching in high school, And so don't ever say I can't do something, That's all I want to share. I hope it will make you think.
Okay. I think there was a message from D. Afari. If you can read that as a question or what.
I think it's a contribution.
What was the contribution?
She said, if I can add, I just want to say that the vision God has for you is for you. No one can see it for you. Same way, no one can see what you see with your natural eyes. Just be diligent in the things God has called you to do. It doesn't have to make sense to others, because the vision isn't for them, it's for you.
That's
just
true.
Put in the work and let your vision come to fruition. We are here.
I mean, that is great. I mean, as a follow-up, let me ask this question. So how do we deal with those who, there's an African proverb that the one who is going on the path does not realize it's not straight. Pastor, how do you say that?
It's not realize something crooked or something.
Yeah, you can't see that it's crooked.
Yes.
Okay. And that may be true to some extent. The path may be crooked. Someone will tell you, hey, straighten it, and so on. But it doesn't mean that you shouldn't cut the path.
Okay.
I hope you get me. It doesn't mean you shouldn't cut it. So, yes, you need guidance. And sometimes people come to me with ideas and visions, speak to me like it blows my mind. But one thing I'll tell you is this. Look, I don't get what you are doing. It scares me. But if God has put it on your heart, you can do it. So go ahead and go for it. For me, as a pastor, talking to young people, I always like to tell them that there are things I may not always understand you because of my generation and all that, but I will still encourage you to do it. That's my attitude. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody wants to add something to it? Akosia, I haven't heard from you in a while.
Yeah, I think that contribution is spot on, especially with what we were talking about as far as like instigators or those who always want to like be in someone's business or see what someone's doing. And that was the exact analogy I had in mind. It's like your vision is blurry and you're hearing that like, oh, maybe Tina or Ben or Lawrence has like perfect sight, right? So then you yourself, rather than for you to maybe desire similar, you can look at somebody and not be jealous or envious, but you can still admire their qualities and desire for God to use you in your own capacities, because maybe you just admire something about them. But rather than for you to take that time, focus on realizing what the problem is, why is your vision blurry? Maybe you need glasses. You're looking at everybody else like, hey, do you see it clearly? Like, oh, how does this person see? And that's not the way to go. So I think that it's key to be very, very, very intentional about discovering what God has called you to do. I think that we hear in the news every day how people wake up and they don't have life anymore. But there's a purpose, there's a reason, there's a drive, there's a mission that each and every one of us has to accomplish, and it's for the glory of God, whether we like it or not. So rather than to be so caught up in like, how is Tina doing it? How is Uncle Ernest doing it? How is it? You're losing out on precious time that God has given us, you know? So I would just encourage all of us to really spend time in as much as, and I've found out that a lot of people feel uncomfortable with self-discovery, spending time with God, dealing with difficult past, taking it head on, committing those things to prayer, cutting ties with the wrong people. It's uncomfortable. But my encouragement would be like, we always hear that nothing grows out of a comfort zone, and it's true. Complacency is the devil's way of keeping you in a boundary of fear. So you look at everything in life that is a manifestation of growth, childbirth, you know, a woman will be uncomfortable for 9 months of her life, but look at what comes in the end, the growth, the child is born, the development, the bond, and everything that comes after that is so worth the uncomfortability you endure for a short time. So I would say apply that to everyone's life and, you know, your own capacity and where you feel God is leading you. But anything that feels uncomfortable and you just feel that tugging of like, I'm supposed to maybe end this friendship or this relationship, or I need to do a lot of digging into why I'm afraid to do certain things, do it. Because that is the door between opportunity, prosperity, and just staying stagnant.
Okay, our time is fast spent. I just have one more thing that I want to go around and grab 2 words from each person, okay? There's a saying that if you deal with the demon within you, there's no demon on the outside that can get to you. There's some African proverb that I read some long time ago. How do you relate that to self-esteem? Just 2 or 3 words, if we can go around. Lawrence.
If you deal with the demon inside you, there's no
You know,
demon.
the things the thing inside you that tells you you can't do it, you can't do it, you can't do it, is more dangerous than those outside that are telling you can't do it. So if you deal with that, nobody from the outside can get to you. So
there's the proverb, I think it's a proverb, say, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he.
Okay.
Making sure you focus on what you're saying to yourself. Like they say that we talk to ourselves more than we talk to other people. So what's going on in your head? What are you saying to yourself? How are you talking to yourself? How do you give in? Or when the demon whispers those evil thoughts, how do you respond to that? Do you give in, or do you fight back and say, no, I'm not like that. I'm not going to lose. I'm going to win, or I'm going to make it. I'm going to get it done.
All right. Dr. Bonsu, you have to unmute yourself.
I think that, again, you know, you have to listen to yourself and you have to know what you want. I think at the end of the day, no one can make a decision for you but yourself.
Okay.
And if you say to yourself, this is what you want, then ignore the naysayers, okay? The thoughts are gonna come. Again, be prayerful. And if prayer is gonna help you through it, then that's what you're gonna depend on. That's all I have.
Amen. Ben.
Yeah. Demon within you, I think it's synonymous to being the saying that, you are your own worst enemy, and that you are the reason why you hold yourself back. It could be so many things. This can go so much deeper, but the cause of a lot of our problems is our self-esteem. It could be our insecurities or things like that, which prevent us from doing something, and then it lets us spiral or snowball into deeper insecurities. So once you address that demon inside of you, nothing outside can bother you at all.
Right. Dark Sacks. You have to unmute yourself, sir.
Oh,
Got you.
yeah.
See?
I believe that, as human beings, the more you get rid of the things that are negative inside you, and the more you're ready to accept the things that like Pastor said, that your shortcomings, and either work on your strengths so that you don't become a mediocre person, the better it is. Like I remember I think we were talking, and then you said, how do you get a wound to heal if you don't start touching it?
Yeah.
And I was telling you how I feel like you should just treat it like a regular wound. If you don't tackle anything head on, nothing is going to work. Let's just say you found out you have diabetes. If you do not start taking healthy decisions and taking your medications as you're supposed to head on, because the first step of every time somebody is diagnosed with any disease, the first step is for the person to accept that I have this said disease, and I have to make sure that I am going to, not die from the complications of this disease. So the first thing is for us to understand that we're not always going to have good days, and as for like me personally, I don't always have good days, but you're going to start with maybe a lot of bad days and some good days and some mediocre days. Then you're going to get to a lot of mediocre days and some bad days, and then probably minimally good days. But like Ben mentioned, like going to the gym, it would be like a muscle. The more you work on it, the more you tell yourself positive things, the more you continue to build on your skill, eventually you would, enjoy more good days of just great, feeling good about yourself and your skills as a human being and as a Christian. So that's all I have.
Sister Tina, Ms. Bougie, unmute yourself. There you go.
So I think that everybody's right on. So dealing with the enemy within you, I believe, is critical to your growth because it can make or break you. So you have to really fight it and come out of it to be able to live your full potential. Because whatever you make your mind to do, or whatever you make your mind, is what you manifest. So if you don't fight what's within you, it will be very difficult to live to your full potential and just bloom, I should say. And, fighting with the enemy within you can mean different things. You may need to talk to a therapist. You may need to seek guidance, counseling, whatever it is that you need to do to get mentally right is the first step before you can even walk out and proceed and do other things that you want to accomplish.
Amen. Well, Pastor, you have some words for our young people and even older folk that have tuned in out there, even as we wrap up. Can you please unmute yourself? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if you discussed it before I came on, but as a pastor, one thing which frustrates me with Christians is when we try to use spirituality as an excuse for mediocrity. It's not God's will for me to excel. God just doesn't want me to make it, so I will settle for this. It's not part of God's scheme. Even Job was restored. We go through periods of lack. We go through periods of suffering, but I don't believe it's God's will for us to be that way. And I think too many Christians are kind of. When I was growing up, it was very common for us to think that way. That. We don't want to, you fail your exam, you can't go to college. Oh, it's God's will for me to serve him, so it's good. So I'm going to praise the Lord and so on. Please, God doesn't want failures. He wants success. So we need to look within ourselves and push and be the best that we can be, because God has put a lot of talents and gifts within us. And in my life, I've seen so many people who were average. But when they expose themselves to the right things and learn the right things and make discoveries, they excel so dramatically to a point where, even it's like unbelievable. So it is there. We can all do. We serve the same God. Thank you.
Thank you. Guys, I can't thank you enough. Akosia, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Dr. Bonsu, thank you so much. I know you're on vacation. I pulled you in. We appreciate all that you do. Tina, big ups, girl. Big ups. Lawyer, thank you so much.
Of course.
We'll talk on the other side. And Lawrence, man, we appreciate your insights and the knowledge that you've given us tonight. And Dr. Sarkodie, you need to go to your barber, man. But we still love you, though. We still love you. We still love you. All right. So, guys, on that note, we just want to thank all of you for tuning in. God willing, we'll be back with more interesting topics. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.